Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nix coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I wanted to talk about Dr. Dre and his mixing workflow. You know, Dr. Dre is one of the more interesting people to me in the music game. You know, he was instrumental in a lot of groups, and he's like one of the pioneers in hip hop. You know, he had NWA, then he had Eminem and 50 Cent. He had his own solo career. He was a part of, you know, a lot of productions. He had his hand in it. But a lot of people know Dr. Dre as a producer side, which definitely he is. He's a producer, he's an orchestrator, he's a vibe controller. He tells everybody where to go, he puts everybody in position. But I wanted to talk today about Dr. Dre as a mixer. A lot of the times when I see pictures of Dr. Dre or him with other rappers, they're always in the studio and they always post it up on a little SSL console, and I was like, wow, you know, Dr. Dre is a really good engineer, specifically a really good mixer, and nobody talks about how he does his mixes because his mixes are pretty amazing. But let's look into this right away. So I actually created this template. The very first thing I wanted to do is actually just cite my source that I use. This is a video with I think his name is Mr. Richard Siegel. He did a lot of recording work for Dr. Dre, Eminem, you know, Exhibit, all them boys like that. So he talked a little bit about Dr. Dre's you know, his workflow and everything like that, and I used this video as a way to reference what he's doing, and also I use his music that I actually listen to, you know. So thankfully I got to this video before those other people got to the video and tried to cut it up and do all that stuff and, you know, take the template and resell it. So here I made my own custom template that I'm going to be giving away for free. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to show some support back. So the very first thing with Dr. Dre is that the console that he was using, Dr. Dre was using an SSL G series of 4000, and the best part of that console was really about the bus compressor. The bus compressor was used great for rock and roll, rap music, and it was really good because it gave that VCA punchy sound. You know, prior to those solid state consoles, a lot of the time the consoles were the ones like in Abbey Road, and they used the tube specifically. So the SSL was better with the solid state components because it had lower noise, lower distortion, all of that goodness, and it also brought in the automation system in there. The very first thing I wanted to talk about is the bus compressor. So it's very interesting to me how people always want to talk about gluing their mixes and making their mixes come together, but gluing a mix is something that it doesn't just come down to the bus compressor, you know. It's something that is coming down to your entire mindset about the music, the sounds you're picking, the drums, the snare, everything has to work together. That is what is gluing your mix. Sound selection is a very big part. Some people think, oh, if I just slap a 2-bus SSL on my mix, well, there you go, my mix is glued. But that's not the case though, you know. Sometimes even the SSL bus compressor, sometimes they didn't even use it. They might have picked the outboard compressor because maybe it didn't actually glue the mix. So I like to use the Waves SSL bus compressor. There's another one called the Cymatic the glue bus compressor. That's a really good one, but the Waves one is pretty dope. So Dr. Dre's settings generally, and most engineers, Lord Algae, a lot of them boys, they used a 30 millisecond attack time and a quick release. So slowest attack, quickest release. So a lot of the transient, a lot of the punch, the boom, bop, pop, 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 all of that stuff was able to come through using the slow attack of the bus compressor. The actual topology, the way the voltage controlled amplifier circuit works, is what gives it the snap, the grit. So they didn't have to use too much bus compression. Usually the bus compressor is never working too hard. They have something along the lines of a hard ratio. Something like a 4:1 is very hard, but the beautiful thing about the ratios with the SSL is the knee also changes. So when you have a 10:1 ratio, the knee becomes even way more aggressive, even way more harder. People don't usually use that, but the 4:1 is what they use, and the 2:1 is a softer knee that gives a little bit more gentle compression that's working all the time. But with the 4:1, people generally use that, and usually it's the kick and the bass that's really triggering that bus compressor, getting it to hit hard, boom, boom, boom. And Dr. Dre is very known well for that. You know, 50 Cent, a lot of his records in this club, they hitting hard. It's that VCA topology that helped those songs break through the club. Whoa, G-Unit, like all those songs in it, Eminem, shady, I'm shady there, man. So the bus compressor is very versatile, and that's why the UAD version is a little bit different. It actually has kind of like a different sound to it. It gives you the ability to play around with the headroom as well as a sidechain filter. So let's understand that this is a wideband compressor. It's still going to be compressing everything, but in a situation where you have a sidechain filter, it just means that less of the low end energy is going to be over triggering the compression. So then after that, we got to think about the master bus chain using the tape machine that they were using. Tape machine was giving them a little bit of that compression. It's a part of that glue. The glue is not something that falls onto just the shoulders of the bus compressor, but also the tape machine that they were using. They were using a Studer. I know that the GP9 is the most transparent tape out of all of them, and let's pay attention to the calibration. So how hard they were hitting that tape also gave them a little bit of that tape compression. So UAD is amazing. They give us the opportunity to bring some of those characteristics back in. And then with this template, another thing I set up is like this input right here, where this is how hard you hit you're hitting your 2-bus chain. And that's another thing that those throwback engineers, they really liked a lot, because they used to have a fader to where they would hit their 2-bus and people would find the sweet spot to the console, and they would take the whole mix using that like little fader I showed you and hit it hard or hit it a little bit softer, and from there it would give them a tonal coloration. So also a little bit of saturation, a little bit of soft clipping was happening from those actual components. So a lot of times when you overdrive those components, they are producing like a distortion characteristic that gave that Dr. Dre some of that glue, some of that punch, some of that hit, without having to make the the overall bus compressor work to here. So you have Spike, which is the SSL, and that's the reason why I picked that one. Things Dr. Dre used was the SSL G channel. That's another way you can glue your mix. And the thing about today is I'm trying to help you guys figure out that gluing your mix is a whole entire mindset. It's not just one thing. So maybe sometimes too, what you want to use is only use a few plugins that you understand and you've mastered them. So when you're using a few plugins that know how to help you get that sound that you hear in your head, you're just going to be vibing in the mix. And that's important. You got to be able to understand your psychology as a human being. Dr. Dre was another one of those guys where he was always in he knows music is about mood. It's about emotion. It's about characteristic. And a part of you being able to get that is you got to work inside of your lizard brain, your instinct brain. You can't be like, oh, well, I need an EQ right here. This is the bad part about digital. Let me find an EQ right here. That's what a lot of modern people, a lot of modern kids like myself, some stuff like that happened to me where I get option paralysis. So we have to understand that sometimes giving yourself less options is actually going to help you. So the SSL channel strip is amazing. It's very versatile. The compressor section, incredible. How to glue your mix, another aspect, is the compression release time. The way the compressor is bumping and grooving is also going to compress your mix in a way that is going to be moving. The release time is critical, and the waves emulation is incredible, because when you push this threshold the whole way, no compression, you're gonna get a little bit of color, a little bit of saturation. That's another way you would get some of that tonal characteristic, some of that quality, some of those traits that give you a cohesive sound rather than, oh, everything's on the bus compressor type of vibe. And then the ratio is actually incredible. The higher you go up with the ratio, I love playing with this line input and the ratio to try to help me find my tone. The more you go up with the ratio, the knee starts to get a little bit harder, and the SSL is amazing because it also gives us automatic makeup gain. Okay, cool. Then the EQ section is pretty standard. Of course, we know about the filters, the high pass being a moderate 18 dB per octave, and the high pass, the low pass being 12 dB per octave. And of course, they was never too aggressive on that top. They were trying to get more top because the tape has a smoothing characteristic. Now with the EQ, you had the gate section, and that was a reason why the SSL was so incredible in the beginning, because the SSL helped them fight some of that noise using that gate. They had a gate literally on every single channel strip, versus where at one point in time they didn't have a gate on every channel strip, and they had to use something like Dolby or something like Aphex or whatever, some noise type of reduction type of system. And yeah, the EQ is incredible as well. You cover a lot of ground. You get the ability to go from the ×3 the ×3 multiplier right here, which is ×3 everything, and the divider multiplier, the divider right here. Sorry. And that's another thing about mixing. I don't ever want to turn it it into a math equation or a test or something like that. I'm not trying to focus on numbers. I'm just trying to focus on vibes. Dr. Dre, he's known for that West Coast smooth bass. And here I picked something like the pull tech, which is what he definitely used. The pull tech is very broad. It's very amazing once you start pushing some of this low frequency, this low shelf, and you doing things along the lines of boosting and cutting. And the pull tech is one of those great EQs because it gives us that input, that magic, you know, kind of like the CO1B, how when you open up the CO1B, it gives a little bit of magic. The pull tech is kind of like a cousin. It feels like a cousin. The sound of the tube is what I'm trying to say. So, and yeah, you know, he liked to also, you know, sometimes push the highs because that's kind of like the girth, the grunt of the 808. That's kind of what helps the 808, the note translate. You know, the note is what's really speaking. The higher frequency is what's speaking, but the lower frequency is like the bump, the heart, the boom, boom, boom. You know, your heart is mostly made out of lows, so that's why it's important to get the low end of a record right. And then of course we have a kind of a thing going on here where it's the SSL and the NLS working together, collective harmonic distortion, collective you know, saturation, helping us glue our mix. Then I have something like the API. The VCA topology is important for Dr. Dre sound because with Dr. Dre, his drums just snap so hard, they hit so hard, they so boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. Everybody loves his music, especially for New York. New York is one of those places where it's so loud and a lot of stuff's going on. I've been there, and I know in New York, if you want your music to blow up like how 50 Cent did, the engineer has to understand, I need something that's gonna cut through all the noise, cut through all the clutter, something that's gonna cut through and that's gonna catch the listener's attention. So Dr. Dre is smart. That's what making music is about, understanding the perspective. Where did this person come from? Where is this song gonna be played at? Where, you know, where are the type of people that this music is gonna come to? That's what engineering is really about. Engineering is not about, oh man, I got the Mike Dean preset. Oh man, this is the vocal chain every Kanye rapper, and that's not what mixing is about. Don't let those robots turn you into a robot. Just because somebody's a robot and they're stiff, that doesn't mean I have to be a robot and turn into a robot of an engineer. No, being an engineer is about putting your heart into it. That's why Dr. Dre's music is so great. He took his hard life perspective and he put it into his music. That's why his drums hit so hard, because his life was hard. So you got to understand that it doesn't matter if your life was hard or not. You got to take your life and put it into the music. Take the life of the rapper and put it into the music. Music is all about perspective. Music is just a byproduct of life. You're just putting the experiences in there. All right, next thing is going to be the API 2500. I know Dr. Dre had to be using this on his drum bus, because I know Mixed by Ali, who was an apprentice of Dr. Dre, he loves using this on his mix bus, also as a drum bus. So the API 2500, very punchy. VCA topology. The topology is very cohesive in a situation like this. The board is VCA, and the, you know, some of the compressors here are using is VCA. So from an outboard perspective, so like with the API 2500, it's so punchy, and I love using the hard knee. It lets the drums pop, boom, boom, boom. Sounds like a boxer. Sounds like Mike Tyson just hitting and thumping. And even when you use a fast attack on the API, it just gives so much punch. It doesn't even take away the dynamics. But I use the slow attack right here, and I haven't used this template yet, but I feel like if I did use it, it would sound incredible. So I would tell you guys to try it out. You know, start dragging some tracks in there. You're gonna have to, you know, route it yourself, but everything is already set up. And then after that, we have something like the ratio 2, a hard ratio, hard knee, just helping everything hit hard. After that, I'm thinking of Still Dre, the song dun 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 dun. So I use something like the LA2, which is the very first one made by Bill Putnam. So there was the LA1, then there was the LA2. So this is the very first one. It has by far the slowest tack. The LA2A is a little bit faster on the tack. So this one lets all that transient come through, lets all the swag, the boom, 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 the notes of the piano come through. And I'd probably do something about 5 to 7 dB. So this template is mostly made out of Waves plugins, a couple UAD plugins, Spark. So yeah, and then after that, the Studer tape coming back, thick saturation and the calibration a little bit hard, a little bit more tape compression. A lot of that cohesiveness did come from the tape compression. The Studer is incredible, but the GP9 is pretty good for hip hop because it is the most transparent tape formula out of all of them. 1073, Mr. Siegel was talking about, oh yeah, when Eminem and them boys went in the studio, they love that. Need 1073 going into that 2A. So I brought that over here, and the reason why people love it is because it's so creamy, it's so versatile. That preamp is a timeless preamp. It's a timeless preamp, and just the sound of the transistors is perfect for rap music. It's perfect for rock music as well. And also the SSL-G console is perfect for both of them. When I hear rock and I hear rap, it's literally the same exact thing to me. Hard, gritty, compressed, dense sound. So yeah, and you know, they didn't EQ on the way in, so we kept that pretty flat, just maybe in a mixing situation a little bit of high pass. Then we have something like the LA2A from Waves, Chris Lord Algae, and I love this emulation as well. I'd probably do somewhere about 1 to 3 dB, or sometimes even 3 to 5 dB, depends. And you know, after that, when it comes to the actual EQ move, you know, just rolling off a little bit of lows for the distance, rolling off a little bit top, you know, just to give everything sounding smooth and creamy. But Dr. Dre, he would always be playing on that board, and generally when it came to vocals, they did not use the compression on the board. They always deferred the outboard gear. All right, let's keep rolling. Then after that, the distressor is something that Dr. Dre loved to use, and the preset I picked right here is favorite vocal. And the ratio they usually use that really sounds good on vocals is 6:1. It just has a certain type of snap to it, and I love starting up on that distressor. Everything 5 5 5 5, you pushing a little bit of that more distortion. And we have to understand that the distortion characteristics and the compression action is what gives a vocal life, what helps it move, and what helps it develop that human connection and speak to the listener. If you cannot connect to the audience, nobody's gonna care about how great your mix sounds. Wow, you use that Jason Joshua God particle. Oh my God, nobody's gonna say that. Nobody cares. People only care about if the music connects to them or not. So the distressor is another one great things, because it can do a smooth compression, or it can also start pumping and breathing and bringing stuff to life. Cohesive, but we have different pieces of outboard that are specializing, you know? So even when you glue something, you still want it to separate it. You have to be smart as an engineer. Sometimes you want to glue stuff, sometimes you want to make it wide. It's all about balance. Life is all about balance. When you go to the doctor, he says, oh, you need to have a balanced diet. So life is all about balance. Music is just the byproduct of life. Your music has to be balanced tonally and frequency wise for people to develop that connection to it. Then we have the Fairchild. So I love the Fairchild for the grittiness, and I just love this preset right here, West Coast Vocal. And this would kind of be something that I would only use to tap it, maybe about 1 dB. But the most important thing when people were using Fairchilds is they never hit them too hard. They had to ration the equipment. You know, they didn't have an infinite amount of EQP1As, an infinite amount of LA2As. They had to ration stuff. So as they're picking, okay, I'm gonna use this for the bass, this for the vocal, everything is specializing. And that's how the listener can, you know, say, okay, I hear that kick, I hear that, because everything has its own tonal uniqueness, tonal identity. So I would be using this more for a saturator. That's the beautiful thing about the Fairchild, the fact that it is one of the first compressors, very mu, but it's so versatile because you can use it as a saturator independently, or you can use it as a bus compressor. It even has mid-side mode that came from the times of, you know, vinyl cutting and all that stuff. So that's just dope. And then after that, let's keep rolling. Blackface 1176. So with this one, this was the revision, and this is the low noise version. The great thing about this is I'm using the parallel vocal aggression, which is the preset that I like. It helps the mixes pump and breathe, and especially just specifically for the vocal, it just really helps bring out the nuances to a vocal, and it helps everything just be up front. That's what Dr. Dre is very well known for in his music. He knows how to make that lead vocal sound so up front, but then those background vocals sound so back, you know, using the methods that he used, because he used the contrast to help create the distance to set the sound stage. He understands all of these concepts, and he understands that he got to put his life perspective into the music and the artist's life perspective in the music, and that's how you make good music, guys. So slowest attack, even the slowest attack on an 1176 is lightning quick. So yeah, we slowest attack just to help still give the openness to the sound, and you know, all buttons in ratio, which varies the, you know, it varies the bias current, and it just starts helping it just hit a whole new level of saturation. They're nothing crazy, something like a quarter ping pong, something like an 1/8 note delay. And on my vocal bus too, pay attention to how my auxes are sent. Dr. Dre and a lot of engineers did this technique where they will send like the quarter delay to one side, and then they will send the 1/8 note to another side. So it kind of creates this waviness, this movement in the song. So that's another great thing. It gives even more widening. And let's keep, you know, let's just wrap this thing up. You know, we have the reverb, which Dr. Dre loved, which is the RMX, what is it called? The 16. And this is a UAD emulation, but man, this thing is so creamy, it's so warm, it's so rich. And they used to love this because this reverb sound was just the sound of the 2000s. It was the sound of the 90s. People used to have big old chambers and big like actual rooms for these effects, but when the digital delays started coming through in the reverbs, people said, okay, you know what, I got this, and this is gonna become a staple part of my studio, a staple part of my you know, instrument and vocal sound. So the next thing that I have right here is the H3000, the Sound Toys. You can also use a wave doubler as a substitute, but this one is just so freaking warm. I just love the way it saturates, and this is one that helps give width to the background vocals, the ad-libs, as well as the lead vocal. So this is pretty much everything that I have. Last thing I wanted to talk about is a low shelf on the All Effects bus, and I love using that. I got that method from Jason Joshua and Michael Brower, you know, because there's sometimes a buildup when you use a lot of parallel compression or a lot of reverb and delays and effects. Sometimes you just want to use a low shelf because it will help that lead vocal still breathe and the effects as well still breathe. So this is the end of the video today. I didn't want to make it too long, but a guy like this who has 30 years, 40 years in the game, you can't just make a 10-minute video about him. And I don't like when people do that, because mixing can't be summed up into a quick popcorn TikTok YouTube short. Impossible. People been grinding for years and years and years. You gotta love the game for years and years and years before you become even good, before you can say, oh yeah, I'm making a living off of this. So I just want y'all to understand that it's not about the tools, it's about the love for the game. If you love the game will always love you back. So make sure you don't forget to always be passionate about what you're doing every single day and love the music. Okay, so I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. The link for the template gonna be down below. I appreciate you guys. Hope you learned a lot. Peace.